This is Z to Z, finding the path from knowledge to wisdom. To help us grow a little wiser today, I'd like to share a brief summary of my insights. I am always deeply grateful for your company on this journey.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it is always such a pleasure to be here for these conversations.
Yeah, and today we have a mission that, honestly, it strikes right at the core of the modern human condition.
Mhm.
We are diving into mastering the gentle and often really misunderstood art of letting go.
Which is so crucial right now.
Right. Because we live in a society that just absolutely crushes us with these heavy, relentless expectations. So, we're finding a way out of that today.
I love that. A way out.
Yeah. So I want you, the listener, to just imagine for a second that you are stepping off a chaotic, incredibly noisy city street, and you're stepping into a lush, quiet forest.
Oh, that's a great visual.
Like, this is the forest of the mind. And as we walk through it today, I want you to visualize taking off this massive, invisible backpack, one you've been carrying for so long that you literally forgot the weight of it.
Yeah, you just got used to the pain.
Yeah, exactly. And just picture dropping it right onto the mossy ground. We're going to leave our burdens right there. And hey, if you find value in shedding some of that mental weight with us today, please take a quick second to hit the subscribe button and leave a like.
It really does help.
It truly helps us bring more of these journeys into wisdom right to your screen on the Z to Z channel.
That image of the backpack is just vital. Because most of us, like you said, we don't even realize we're wearing it.
Not ever.
We just walk around carrying staggering amounts of mental weight. And the really painful truth here is that almost all of it is self-imposed.
Yeah, we pack the bag ourselves.
We do, but to actually drop that backpack in the forest permanently, we can't just pretend it isn't there. We have to open it up, look inside, and understand the exact mechanism of how we manufactured those burdens in the first place.
Exactly. We really have to map out the anatomy of our own disappointment, because we do build it ourselves piece by specific piece.
Step by step.
Right. There's actually a 4-step cycle that perfectly illustrates how we engineer our own misery.
Yeah.
So step 1 is simply desire, which, that's completely natural, right?
Oh, sure. Biologically, we are totally wired to want things.
Yeah, you want a specific outcome. You want a promotion at work, or you want a sunny day for a picnic, or just you want a friend to text you back.
Right.
But then comes step 2, and this is the trap. Step 2 is illusion. Okay, let's unpack this. Illusion is when we secretly start believing that our internal desire somehow commands external reality.
What's fascinating here is that from a psychological standpoint, this is deeply rooted in our innate egocentric bias.
Oh, interesting. So we think we're the center of everything.
Exactly. An internal narrative completely shifts from, I would really like this to happen to this must happen because I want it and because I planned for it.
Which sets us up for a just massive collision with step 3, which is reality.
Yeah.
The universe is ancient, it's massive, and it is entirely indifferent to our weekend plans.
He really doesn't care.
It follows its own chaotic, unpredictable rules. And that leads directly to step 4, conflict. That is the violent clash between our rigid expectations and the natural flow of reality.
Right, the clash.
Yeah, imagine planning that picnic we talked about. You lay out the blanket, the sandwiches are perfect, and then boom, a massive thunderstorm rolls in. Standing there, soaking wet, screaming at the clouds for ruining your afternoon. That is the conflict.
And if you break down the mathematical impossibility of what you're actually demanding in that moment, it's staggering.
What do you mean by mathematical impossibility?
Well, think about it. To have a perfectly sunny day, you are literally requiring billions of atmospheric variables, the precise spinning of the globe, specific air pressure systems, all to align perfectly with the fact that you decided to make a turkey sandwich.
Wow. When you put it like that, it sounds completely insane.
It kind of is. We mistakenly treat the vast universe like it's a personalized vending machine. But recognizing the absurdity of that, it isn't pessimistic at all. It's incredibly liberating. You just have to accept that you are not the manager of the universe.
Which honestly raises a pretty uncomfortable question. If the universe is mathematically indifferent to our desires, then how do we even define what a good or bad outcome is?
That is the big question.
Right, because if reality just is, it implies that our yardstick for success and failure doesn't actually exist in nature. We completely invent it. Let's talk about the illusion of measurement.
Let's do it.
Picture a wooden desk. On it sits just a standard white ceramic cup of coffee. To the left of the cup, there is this massive, bulky, retro computer monitor from the 1990s. Next to that giant monitor, the cup looks incredibly small.
Right, because of the contrast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now, move your eyes to the right of the cup. Sitting there is a delicate, tiny, antique pocket watch. Next to the watch, that exact same cup looks absolutely huge.
That is such a perfect visualization of relative deprivation theory. The human brain, it's not actually designed to measure absolute value. It is basically an engine of comparison.
Just constantly weighing things against other things.
Always. The cup itself hasn't changed at all. Its volume, its mass, they are identical in both scenarios.
Okay.
It is neither inherently big nor inherently small. It is just a cup.
But we obsess over it. We point at the monitor and scream, "My cup is too small. I'm a total failure." We make ourselves miserable by constantly comparing our perfectly fine, functional lives to giant retro monitors.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether that's, a billionaire on social media or just a neighbor's brand new car.
Exactly. And from an evolutionary perspective, comparison actually kept early humans safe. It helped us gauge our standing in the tribe so we could ensure we got enough resources to survive.
Right, it was a survival tool.
But in the modern world, that survival mechanism just misfires constantly. We invent these arbitrary concepts of success and failure based on whoever happens to be standing next to us.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. But if you can train your mind to see the cup just as a cup to experience your life without constantly measuring it against an imaginary, ever-changing yardstick, you strip away a massive layer of manufactured anxiety.
And what's truly tragic is that we don't just do this with our careers or like our bank accounts. We apply these rigid, impossible measurements to the actual people we love.
We do, and it causes so much pain.
It really brings us to the trap of relationships. I want you to contrast two striking images for a moment. Imagine your hand tightly gripping a small bird. The bird is struggling, its wings are pinned, it's panicking.
That's a tough image.
Yeah, and you are holding on so tight just because you are terrified it will fly away. Now contrast that with an open palm. The hand is relaxed, it's flat, and the bird is just sitting there willingly, singing freely.
This is so common. We frequently confuse attachment with connection. We think gripping tightly is what love looks like.
Why do we do that?
Psychologically, it usually stems from a deep fear of abandonment. We try to control the variables to keep ourselves feeling safe. So we end up writing a script in our heads for our partners, our kids, our friends.
Like a literal movie script.
Basically, yeah. We subconsciously decide, hey, if you truly love me, you will recite these exact lines and behave in this exact way.
But doing that entirely suffocates them. And ironically, it guarantees our own frustration because no independent human being is ever going to perfectly execute the script you wrote for them in your head.
Never.
The bird struggles, and the hand just gets exhausted from gripping so hard.
True peace in a relationship requires a pretty radical shift. It's about appreciating someone's presence without binding them to an expectation. You have to remember that everyone you encounter is navigating their own internal universe.
They have their own weather systems.
Exactly. When you open your palm, you offer them the dignity of their own freedom. If they stay and sing, it's beautiful because it's an actual choice. If they fly away, well, that is their nature. Love is the open palm. It's not the cage.
I hear that, but I got to push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
When they do fly away, or, when they wildly deviate from the script, or when that thunderstorm actually ruins the picnic, it physically hurts. Like rejection or failure causes real visceral pain.
It really does.
We can't just open palm our way out of a broken heart or getting fired from a job, right?
You're absolutely right. And honestly, we shouldn't even try to. But we need to distinguish between the initial hurt and the psychological torture that usually follows it.
Okay, distinguish how?
Well, in Buddhist philosophy, there is this really profound framework for this called the 2 arrows. The first arrow is just reality. It's the unavoidable misfortune. You get a flat tire in the rain, you face a harsh rejection, thwack. You are hit by the first arrow.
And that hurts.
It hurts, yes. And to be alive is to occasionally be struck by it. If we connect this to the bigger picture, pain is inevitable.
Right. The first arrow is just the cost of admission to life. But the second arrow, that's the illusion. The second arrow is when you sit in the rain by your flat tire and you start agonizing.
Yes, exactly.
They scream, "Why does this always happen to me? I'm so stupid for taking this road. My whole week is completely ruined." You literally pull back a bow and shoot yourself with a second arrow.
And this is where we see the profound difference between pain and suffering. Pain is just the physiological or emotional response to the first arrow. It happens. But suffering, the endless rumination, the self-blame, that looping narrative of victimhood, that is the self-inflicted second arrow.
That is entirely on us.
It is. Neurologically, your brain is activating its default mode network, replaying the event to try and figure out how to avoid it in the future. But instead of actually learning anything, you just flood your body with cortisol over and over again. Suffering is a choice to keep reopening the wound.
So my brain is literally torturing me under the guise of trying to keep me safe. That's wild, and I do this constantly. I can turn a 10-minute inconvenience into a 3-day bad mood.
We all do it.
So how do we actually short-circuit that biological loop? How do we put down the bow and refuse the second arrow? We need a new internal script, a kind of mantra for release. If you are taking notes, write this down. If it happens, that's wonderful. If it doesn't happen, that's perfectly fine too.
On the surface, that sounds deceptively simple, right? Maybe even a little passive.
A little bit, yeah.
But beneath that phrase is an incredibly robust psychological framework. There are 3 essential pillars to making that mindset function without it just turning into pure apathy.
Okay, what's the first pillar?
The first pillar is doing your absolute best in the present moment. This isn't about giving up. You still study furiously for the exam. You still plan the picnic meticulously. You put deep effort into your relationships.
Okay, so you aren't just sitting on the couch saying, whatever happens, happens. You're still an active participant in your own life.
Precisely. But the second pillar is where the actual alchemy happens. You actively surrender the final outcome to the vast universe.
Just let it go.
Yes. You acknowledge that after you have exerted your maximum effort, the final result is subject to those billions of variables we talked about earlier. It is completely out of your hands.
And the third pillar?
The third pillar is resilience without baggage. If you don't get the outcome you wanted, you can absolutely try again. But, and this is the key, you try again completely free from the heavy burden of failure. You don't drag the ghost of the last attempt into the new endeavor.
That feels entirely counterintuitive to everything we're taught about ambition, though. I mean, we are sold this idea that we must tie our self-worth directly to the outcome to stay motivated.
It's a very common cultural narrative.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If you actually practice this, doing the work, but surrendering the outcome, your entire definition of happiness fundamentally shifts.
It completely transforms.
Imagine a giant mental blackboard. In chalk, you have the old equation we were all programmed with. It says, happiness equals fulfilling every single desire. I want you to take an eraser and wipe that completely off the board.
Just get rid of it.
The new equation is this. Happiness equals the absence of suffering.
Let's actually challenge the listener right now to do a real-time mental check.
Wow.
Think about your physical and mental state in this exact second as you listen to this deep dive.
Okay, checking in.
Are you currently in agonizing physical pain? Are you starving? Are you in immediate mortal danger? If the answer is no, then you are already experiencing true happiness.
Wait, is it though? Because if I just sit in an empty room staring at a blank wall, I'm not suffering. But I definitely wouldn't call that happiness. That sounds like numbness or just existing. How is this different from just being completely apathetic?
It's a vital distinction to make. We've been culturally conditioned to confuse happiness with dopamine. You know, that sudden fleeting spike of pleasure when you buy a new car or get a promotion.
Oh, right, the rush.
Exactly. Dopamine is a peak, but
Yeah.
you can't live on a peak. True happiness, what the ancient Greeks actually called euthymia, is baseline tranquility.
Baseline tranquility, I like that.
It is the steady, quiet hum of contentment when you aren't actively torturing yourself with a second arrow. It's not numbness at all. It is clarity. It's the peaceful ground you are already standing on, obscured only by your demands for more dopamine. It's not something you achieve, it's something you recognize.
That is a total inversion of the Western ideal. We treat happiness as an acquisition, like a glittering prize at the top of a mountain.
We really do.
To recognize that baseline peace instead, we have to consciously choose the right mental operating system. We essentially have 2 paradigms to choose from, the heavy mind or the free mind.
Let's break those down.
Let me map out the heavy mind first. It operates like a rigid, outdated algorithm. It completely obsesses over the outcome. If a single variable changes, the heavy mind throws a critical error and screams, I am ruined.
A total system crash.
Yeah. It burns massive amounts of cognitive energy, demanding that reality bend to suit its specific needs. It constantly tries to possess things, judge people, and just control the uncontrolled.
The heavy mind is exhausting because it's like trying to hold back the ocean with a broom. It's just never going to work.
Right.
The free mind, conversely, is an adaptable open source system. Instead of obsessing over the outcome, it focuses its processing power entirely on the effort.
So it doesn't crash.
No, when a failure occurs, the free mind doesn't crash and say, I am ruined. It just updates its software. It says, I gained new data, I learned something, and I can iterate. Instead of demanding reality change, it flows with reality as it naturally is. It enjoys the bird's song without braining energy trying to build a cage.
I love that. But let's ground this in harsh reality for a second. Even if you have cultivated this highly adaptable free mind, tragedies still occur.
Of course they do.
The first arrow still hits, and sometimes it hits incredibly hard. How do we actually alchemize a genuinely bad event into a peaceful present?
That's the real test of the free mind.
Imagine you are walking through that forest of the mind, and you come to a river you need to cross. But the wooden bridge is completely broken and washed away. Now, the trap, the despair, is standing there, staring at the rushing water, demanding the bridge return. It shouldn't be broken. It's unfair. I need to cross.
This raises an important question about what acceptance actually means. A lot of people hear letting go, and they think it means toxic positivity.
Oh, like, everything is awesome even though my bridge is gone.
Exactly. They think they have to smile at the broken bridge and pretend they're happy it washed away. You don't. Accepting reality doesn't mean you approve of the bad event. It just means you refuse to let denial destroy your ability to act in the present moment.
So the shift in perspective is turning your back to the broken bridge,
Mhm.
looking at the side of the river you are still safely standing on and saying, okay, the bridge is gone, but at least I still have solid ground beneath my feet.
Precisely. You stop demanding the past change, which is impossible anyway, and you start asking, what resources do I still possess and what can I do with the present? It is about active adaptation rather than passive resignation. You formulate a valid response based on reality and not on how you wish reality was.
Okay, that alchemy perspective makes logical sense.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be honest, when I am in the heat of the moment, when someone just sent me a really aggressive, unfair email, or someone cuts me off in traffic, my brain does not calmly say, let us adapt to reality.
No, it definitely doesn't.
My amygdala completely hijacks my brain and I am just furious. How do we practice this when our nervous system is literally on fire? Let's give everyone a practical tool.
Good idea.
There's a simple 3-step mental process to use when you are overwhelmed. Step 1 is simply to recognize. You step back and observe the emotion without judging it. You say to yourself, I am experiencing anger right now, or I am feeling a spike of anxiety.
You notice the phrasing there.
Right, notice you don't say, I am angry. You are not the emotion, you just name it.
And that subtle linguistic shift is actually profound on a neurological level. When you name the emotion, you move the processing from the emotional center of your brain, the amygdala, to the prefrontal cortex, which handles logic and observation.
So you're literally changing where the brain is working.
Exactly. That tiny bit of distance stops the emotion from completely possessing you. You become the observer of the storm, rather than the storm itself.
That makes so much sense. You bring the logical brain back online, then you move to step 2, investigate. You look for the root cause. You ask yourself, why am I feeling this spike in cortisol?
And what do you usually find?
Almost every single time, if you dig deep enough, the answer will be, my mind is violently clinging to a specific expectation. I expected traffic to be light. I expected my coworker to validate my idea.
Yes, and once your prefrontal cortex has recognized the emotion and investigated the rigid expectation that caused it, you are ready for the final step. Release.
The letting go.
This is the physiological letting go. You take a deep, grounding breath, which activates your parasympathetic nervous system, calming your body down. And you use a variation of our magic words. You say, I did my best. I leave the rest to the wind.
I leave the rest to the wind.
Yes. You visualize that expectation, that heavy burden, physically leaving your body. And by doing so, you consciously guide yourself back to baseline peace.
Now, if you're listening to this in traffic right now, taking a deep breath and saying, I leave it to the wind, probably sounds frustratingly passive. But it isn't giving up. It is actively refusing to shoot yourself with the second arrow.
It's an act of self-defense, really.
It is. I want to challenge everyone listening. The next time you feel your blood pressure rising because a plan fell through, try those 3 steps. Recognize the physical frustration, investigate the hidden expectation, and release it to the wind. Because, honestly, what is the alternative? Just white-knuckling your way through life, making yourself miserable over things you don't control.
Exactly. The alternative is carrying that heavy backpack forever.
So what does this all mean? As we pull all these threads together, what does this actually mean for us as we navigate our daily routines?
That's the core of it.
If there's one core insight we want you to take away from this journey into the forest of the mind, It's a fundamental shift in where you source your stability. We spend so much of our lives looking for hope out there.
We constantly look outward.
We tell ourselves, if the economy would just stabilize, if my partner would just act right, if my bank account hit this specific number, then I would finally be secure. But hope and peace are not found out there in the unpredictable, chaotic math of the universe.
They really aren't.
They are generated entirely within you. Do not wait for the external world to be perfect before you allow yourself to be happy, because you will be waiting until the end of time.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over today. You, right now, exactly as you are, sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, navigating whatever chaos is in your life, you have the ultimate inherent right to live a joyful, free life today.
Not tomorrow.
Not tomorrow. Not when the project is finished. Not when the bridge is rebuilt. Today. By deciding to be the master of your own mind, by consciously choosing to drop that heavy backpack of rigid expectations, you become untouchable. No external event, no ruined picnic, no broken bridge can ever truly diminish your inner peace because you are no longer relying on the external world to provide it. You are the source.
That is a deeply powerful truth to keep close to your chest. Remember that image we started with, stepping off the chaotic street into the quiet forest, taking off that massive invisible backpack and dropping it onto the moss.
Just let it fall.
Leave it there. You truly do not need it to walk the rest of this path. Thank you so much for joining us on the Z channel for this deep dive. If this conversation resonated with you, if you feel even an ounce lighter than when we started, please hit subscribe, drop a like, and share this video with someone who might be carrying a heavy backpack of their own today.
Thank you all so much.
We will be right here, continuing the journey from knowledge to wisdom next time. Take care of yourselves, and remember, leave the rest to the wind.